Bienvenue tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24, or France 24 in English, and welcome to this week's reporter, Clovis Casali. Clovis, great to see you back in place. Clovis just back in from Myanmar and Bangladesh, where he's been charting the plight of the Rohingya Muslims. And over the past year, Clovis, we've seen some horrific scenes as the Rohingya Muslims have been forced out of their home base, their homeland, if you like, Rakhine state in Myanmar, spilling over the border into Bangladesh in increasing numbers. The UN talking about textbook ethnic cleansing, their words about what they've faced in Rakhine state at the hands of the Myanmar military. What will we see in your report?
Well, basically, with Charles Dupoisin, we wanted to understand the situation of the Rohingya 1 year after this mass exodus began. So we needed to be on both sides of the border, in Bangladesh, but also in northern Rakhine, in Myanmar, and it was very hard to go to northern Rakhine. We got rare access. We had to negotiate with authorities because humanitarian workers, observers, journalists can't go there freely. So we had to be escorted by the Myanmar army, and we went there. We saw these villages burnt down, covered up by nature now, and we also got to talk to the Myanmar army and get their side of events.
Clovis, thank you very much. A rare insight into what has become very much a hidden tragedy in many ways. Clovis Casali's report on the Rohingya. Here it is on Reporters.
The monsoon hits Balukhali, and these children seem hardly bothered by the heavy rains. They are survivors, just like the rest of the 1 million Rohingyas living in the world's largest refugee camp. All of them fled the violence carried out by the Burmese army. Two cousins have agreed to meet us and recount their ordeal, but only behind closed doors. They were raped by soldiers, and one of the young women will soon give birth. Shofika, on the other hand, found a doctor to have an abortion. She's haunted by the memory of her last days in Myanmar.
Soldiers took 6 women at a time. With me there were 2 7-year-olds and an old lady. They threw us on the ground and tore our clothes. When I tried to fight a soldier off, he was furious and tried to cut me with a knife. My mother tried to protect me, and they slit her throat. She died in front of me. Then I passed out. When I woke up, the house was burning. Other women tried to escape, but I'm the only one who survived.
She then hid in rice paddies before crossing the border with other Rohingyas.
Now I live in misery with my cousin. In Myanmar, we could go out and eat whatever we wanted. In Bangladesh, we only have what NGOs give us.
Her cousin's husband has forbidden her from talking to us. Rape has brought shame to the household, with their baby a daily reminder of the atrocities they suffered. Many Rohingyas share the same stories in these camps that are like open-air prisons. Families survive thanks to international aid and come pick up a bag of rice from here once a month. The rules are strict and hard to implement.
You've already had your ration of rice.
No, it's not true.
Then what's the ink mark on his finger? He's taking your rice?
This time he's come to pick up some rice for me. He's only going to carry my bag.
Okay, you can go.
When supplies come in, Saddam and his friends jostle for food. His father was injured when they fled Myanmar, so the 10-year-old must provide for the family.
We suffer so much here. In Myanmar, we had a real house, but at least now we're not scared. We can get food and not worry about running away from the police.
Saddam has lived here for a year. He knows his way through the many winding alleys, amid the mud and sewage. Diseases spread rapidly in this densely populated makeshift camp.
My house is on the other side of the hill.
Saddam has no belongings to remind him of his life in Rakhine state. The Husseins had to quickly escape when the army stormed their village. They walked for 2 days before boarding a boat.
It was all jungle here. We cut the trees and built everything with our bare hands. We dug and flattened the land. There was nothing here.
He managed to save his family, but one child is still missing.
When the violence began, we all got scared and fled our village. That's when we lost my daughter. The Bangladeshi police found her in Shokoria, near Cox's Bazar, and they put her in jail.
Rohingyas can't leave the area. Bangladesh won't allow them to settle in other parts of the country. Police have established roadblocks around the camps.
You need a permit to film here.
With a hidden camera, we walk towards a family stopped by security forces.
Is this card from Myanmar?
No, Bangladeshi authorities gave it to me. Look, my son cut his leg. We need to see a doctor. That's why I got the card.
Tell me where you're going and where you're from. Which camp are you from? Come with me. Tell me which camp you're from.
Camp 1.
Sir, please. Everything's closed today, and we need to go to hospital for treatment. Look at my son's leg. It's getting worse by the day.
The soldier explains that many Rohingyas try to leave illegally. The military is also on high alert with rumours of possible attacks by ARSA. The armed group claiming to fight for the Rohingyas has members living discreetly in the area. Its operations against Myanmar police a year ago prompted the violent crackdown against the Muslim minority. More than half of the survivors are children. A lost generation that wanders around the camp, thinking of what it once had.
I remember everything. When I went to school and played in Myanmar. But I also remember when they killed my parents, my brothers and sisters. All those terrible times. Now I hope I can become a good teacher to give poor children a future.
School helps these children forget their problems. But NGOs lack the funds to meet their needs. The more fortunate boys and girls have only 3 hours of class a day. The volunteers teach Burmese and English, but not Bengali. It's an order from authorities who don't want the Rohingyas to envisage a future in Bangladesh. Already one of the poorest countries in the world, it's struggling to cope with the humanitarian crisis. As the camps continue to grow, locals are losing patience.
We're angry at the Rohingyas. They stole our land, and we had to show humanity. But we'll never get our land back, because our government gave it away.
Despite what they've been through, most of the Rohingyas want to return to northern Rakhine. The area is only 3 kilometers away, but totally cut off from the world. It's impossible to go there without being invited by Burmese authorities. So we head to Yangon. After a plane and boat ride, we drive several hours escorted by this very army that stands accused of ethnic cleansing, before finally arriving at a heavily guarded border. Bangladesh is on the other side of the barbed wire. This is no man's land. Thousands of Rohingyas sleep in a makeshift camp as close as possible to where they have lived for generations. Day and night they face the same soldiers who stormed their homes and consider them as illegal immigrants.
We were born in Myanmar, so we're Myanmar citizens. And they must recognize it. The government must change its laws. We are ready to return right away, but we'll only come back if they guarantee that we'll be safe and that our lives are protected.
Under intense international criticism, Myanmar says it's ready to take back its Muslim minority. But when we meet the head of the local police, it becomes very clear that animosity remains high.
We did nothing to innocent people. Those who fled and stay in Bangladesh don't want to return because they know they committed illegal acts. Our security forces are only here to protect citizens.
An army in denial, while the memory of the Rohingya presence slowly fades away in northern Rakhine. Their villages, reduced to ashes a year ago, are now covered up by nature. Only burned down tree trunks indicate where the Muslims once lived. The Rakhine Buddhists show little compassion for their former neighbours.
The Muslims set fire to their own houses before leaving. Local chiefs went to see them to tell them to stay. They said they would, but they left anyway.
On our way, we noticed several newly built villages.
There were Muslims living in this area, but I heard they'd attacked police and fired from their village.
Our driver says the government has given these brand new houses to Buddhists. The Rohingyas seem to have already been replaced. If they dare to one day return, they will come across this burned down mosque at the entrance of a transit camp. This is where authorities want to regroup the Rohingyas and verify their identity before allowing them to stay. But for now, no returnee in sight. Only a few soldiers and medical teams who refuse to acknowledge the causes of the exodus.
Why Muslim?
Yeah.
Live?
Why go to Bangladesh?
Why go to Bangladesh? They ran away.
Why?
Why? I don't know exactly, because I'm not here at that time. I'm away from here.
Most of the Rohingyas fled northern Rakhine. Those who stayed live in fear, unable to move freely. The waters separating Myanmar and Bangladesh saw hundreds of thousands escape what history might one day officially call a genocide. The United Nations condemned the operations, but with little effect. The Burmese army is accountable to no one and remains as powerful as ever in Myanmar.
Our reporter Clovis Casali is still with us. Clovis, thank you so much for that insight into what's going on there at that position on the border between Myanmar and Bangladesh. The Rohingya, it's been well documented, have faced horrors. What was the moment that kicked all this off?
Well, first it has to be said that there have been tensions between Muslims and Buddhists in Rakhine State for decades, each side accusing the other of committing violence. But this time, this mass exodus was caused by the military operations. Myanmar's army saying that it was simply responding and targeting terrorists from ARSA. ARSA is an armed militant group claiming to represent the Rohingyas. And ARSA carried out attacks against police stations, but then you saw the intensity of the military operations of Myanmar. ARSA says that the Rohingyas' rights are not protected, not defended. The Rohingya we spoke to say the same. And in Bangladesh, we met with some Rohingya who just want to be able to return to northern Rakhine, but they want to return only if their rights are protected. Take a listen.
In here, we are happy about our praying, because in Myanmar, they didn't let us pray in open spaces. Here we can pray in the open. If Myanmar's government says that we are Rohingya and Muslim and give us the right to pray openly, then it will be good. If they don't give us the right to pray, then how could we go back to Myanmar?
All those concerned faces. Clovis, what is the future for these people?
Well, people in Bangladesh are extremely pessimistic, of course. Bangladesh doesn't want to keep hundreds of thousands of Rohingya on its soil. It says it can't afford to. It's planning to relocate large parts of them on an island where you can simply not live. With landslides and the monsoon, it's clearly not an area where people can live. The Rohingya simply want to be able to return to the land where they've been living, them and their families for generations, and that's in northern Rakhine. But you saw in the report that Myanmar authorities don't really want to welcome them back. They say they do, but these transit camps are empty. The army denies targeting any civilians, which goes against all the testimonies we got in Bangladesh. So a very difficult situation, an impossible return, one could say.
Clovis, thank you very much indeed. Clovis Casali, our reporter, of course, in this reporters programme looking at the plight of the Rohingya Muslims. We will continue to chart what happens to them, of course, via all our channels here at France 24. This is Reporters on France 24. Stay with us.